Joined now by Sean Callahan of Husker Online. Big doings in Lincoln. Kyle McCord on an official visit, former Ohio State quarterback. And then comes the news. The number one quarterback recruit in America maybe flipping to the Huskers.
Welcome to the offseason capital of college football, Andy Staples, Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah, it's been a wild week. And I think things were fairly status quo. We expected the Kyle McCord visit, felt really good probably since last Friday that Nebraska was in great shape with Kyle McCord. And then here on Monday morning, I start getting a few things my way about Dylan Raiola in Nebraska, and things are resurfacing, and something happened at Georgia. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, the leading industry experts in our business, Chad Simmons and Steve Wilfong, are putting in predictions for Dylan Raiola to Nebraska. I mean, it's absolutely you can't make this stuff up. That Nebraska could have 2 5-star quarterbacks potentially on its roster by the week's end.
Dylan Raiola is a legacy at Nebraska. Dad is Dominic, former center, played for a long time in the NFL. He was playing high school football in Arizona, then decided to play high school football in Georgia after committing to Georgia. But Nebraska has never stopped recruiting him.
Well, his uncle, Donovan Raiola, is the offensive line coach at Nebraska, and he was the only coach retained from the Scott Frost coaching staff. And the offensive line played well this year, and things are really strong, I think, with Matt Rhule and Donovan Raiola. So it looks like his position is solid in Lincoln with this coaching staff. But the Raiola family came to a game again this year in Lincoln. They were on the sidelines for a home game, and they did that last year as well. But you just didn't think much of it. That he's committed to Georgia. He moved to Beaufort, Georgia, to be closer, to his new school. So nobody really could have thought that this would all come out, especially Andy, it was my understanding he was going to move to Athens, or is expected to move there within a week, because, we haven't been to a bowl game at Nebraska for so long, but I didn't realize early enrollees can move in once the semester ends at their high school.
Yeah, and they can start practicing pre-bowl as an early enrollee. So they could, he could have theoretically participated in Georgia's Orange Bowl practices. So if he's making this decision, he has to kind of make it right now.
Right. And the dead period, as you know, starts Sunday. So would there need to be another official visit that takes place this weekend or this week with the Raiolas? Does he even need to do that? His uncle's here, so he can come to Lincoln, Nebraska anytime he wants. He's been here countless times as a young kid, and even as a high school recruit. So there's not much more that he needs to see. But it's wild because you go back to the recruiting process when he didn't pick Nebraska. Matt Rhule then called a local quarterback, Daniel Callahan, who's from Bellevue West High School, one of the top programs in Nebraska. And he decommitted from Missouri. He was Eli Drinkowitz's quarterback to switch to Nebraska. And that kind of played out over a week's period. And you just, to see it kind of play out again, where now they both could be in the class, and Kyle McCord coming, it's a lot to kind of digest here.
Well, and let's talk about Kyle McCord, because this is that was my first thought is, okay, what does that mean with Kyle McCord? But then you think, okay, Kyle McCord is a junior right now. He's played 3 years at Ohio State. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. He's basically a 1-year rental if they take him. It kind of would be a situation not exactly like Texas, because we don't know what Quinn Ewers is going to do. But Arch Manning went to Texas with the thought that he was going to redshirt. He was the number one recruit at quarterback in last year's class. And the thought was he was going to redshirt and then kind of move into the role when it was open. How's Raiola on that? Is it, he probably wasn't expecting to play early at Georgia if Carson Beck was coming back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that scenario makes a lot of sense. I mean, if Kyle McCord comes to Nebraska, you can still play Raiola on up to 4 games if he came to Nebraska, just like what Texas did with Arch Manning this year. So there's a lot that makes sense, and it would allow Matt Rhule to continue to kind of build this team and this roster where by 2025, when Raiola would have theoretically his opportunity, it would be a more stocked Big Ten team. And I'm sure more recruits would look that way when you have a guy like Raiola waiting in the wings, and McCord there right now, if that plays out that way. So yeah, this is there's a lot to this, a lot of moving parts. And I've been around a lot of recruiting in my career, Andy. I don't recall one quite like this in Nebraska.
Well, a lot of times when these flips happen, it's a case where a staff hasn't quit, but the player's been sending kind of little smoke signals along the way every few weeks, every few days as the process has gone along. This didn't work out like that. It was all of a sudden Monday, it started bubbling.
Yeah, I don't know what happened at Georgia this past week, but did something happen when the Raiolas were on campus and hanging out last weekend? I don't know. What would have played out to kind of get to this point, because they moved to Georgia to be closer to Georgia.
Yeah.
So there's just so many layers to this thing that.
Buford's in Gwinnett County. It's like, it is basically less than an hour drive to Athens from where they are. So it is pretty amazing how that all worked out.
But yeah, it's sure going to make for a fun week here to kind of see how this thing plays out and where it all goes with Dylan Raiola. Like, will he announce his decommit? How will this all go down now in the coming hours, days, now that the cat's out of the bag and, everybody is kind of projecting what's going to happen next?
Sean, it is going to be quite a sprint toward National Signing Day next Wednesday. But and you're right, the off-season capital of news in college football is Lincoln, Nebraska. So I expect to be talking to you quite a bit.
All right. Hey, thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.